Great decorating is all about the details, including a gorgeous textured set of coasters. How we love a coaster. Functional. And why not be beautiful? Quince has a gorgeous set of woven rattan coasters in 3 terrific colors with their own little holder that you're going to absolutely love. And if you haven't visited quince.com/DTT yet, get on over there. It's everyday elevated living without the markup. From crisp 100% linen bedding and soft organic cotton towels to airy curtains and premium kitchen tools designed for everyday use. And the best part? Like Quince's clothing, their home goods are half the cost of similar brands. By partnering with top artisans, Quince cuts out the cost of the middleman and passes the savings on to us. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. Elevate your space with home essentials from Quince. Go to quince.com/DTT for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/DTT to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/DTT.
Pull up a chair. Hi, I'm Anita Joyce here with Kelly Wilkness, and this is Decorating Tips and Tricks. Today we are setting a gorgeous table. We have lots of tips, and this is one of my most fun things to do because you know I am all about the dishes, so I have lots of ideas for this, and it's really one of my most fun things to do.
Yeah, other people gather friends around their table. Anita gathers friends on her table.
That doesn't sound right, though, Kelly.
Well, I'll dance on your table anytime, but I'm talking about the dish friends that you have come out all the time, but particularly at the holiday time. Yeah, everybody likes to set a gorgeous table. What happens sometimes is you don't give yourself enough time to do so, and then it becomes not fun.
Oh, yeah.
Give yourself enough time to do it so you can take pleasure in it. You can do this pretty far in advance. And we've got some great tips and ideas today that you can incorporate with whatever you've got on hand, I think. You don't even have to do anything particularly special or buy anything new. But of course, if you want to, there's that as well.
Well, we'll have lots of ideas. And I'm going to include a link to how to set the table, meaning the placement of where everything should go.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
You know, most people know this, but maybe you're new to entertaining. Maybe you were raised by wolves and you weren't, exposed to this. And there's so much informal training. If you're younger than a certain age, you might not have even seen it set properly except in a restaurant. So I think this is something that it's just a good refresher, especially if maybe you're having wine and water and coffee. Where do all those drinks go? And I think it is helpful to have that to look at.
Oh, I think that's a great idea. Good. I'm glad you did that. And it's just good to know what the rules are. And of course, they're there to be broken too if you want to. So we might even be giving you some tips that don't really go along with the rules, but still can make a gorgeous table. I approached it in a way to sort of give you general sense of how I would approach the table. And while I was thinking of these things, I realized that almost all of the tips, advice, all start with the letter L. So it's going to be layered, low, lit, and limited palette.
Well, and I approached it with each item that is going on the table. So I'm going to cover these items as you in your categories so that we kind of stay on the same track. But as is often the case, we approach this from a different organizational process.
I love that lawyer, engineer, mind, decorator, creator thing all coming together.
We don't organize it the same way, but we both are very organized in our thoughts. And so that is helpful because some people are kind of, one thought here, one thought there. I know taking my mom to the grocery store was scary because her list wasn't organized by where it was in the grocery store. So we were going all over the place, back and forth. Mm-hmm. So it is nice. And it does save you time if it is organized.
Yes. So I'm more broad stroke categories and just words that you can kind of think about as you're choosing things to set your table. Anita might be drilling down a little bit more into the specifics, but that's just going to give you so much information. So as she said, pull up a chair and let's get started. So layered is my first category or thought to keep in mind. Layered, what am I talking about there? Runners, chargers, plates on top of plates, napkin on top of the plates. A layered look is going to give you a really luscious looking table, something that is a feast for the eyes and something that's unusual. You're not going to really do a big layered table on a Tuesday night when you just want to get food on that plate and on the table and have everybody enjoy it. So when you're approaching the holidays, I like to use a runner. Anita might talk more about runners or tablecloths. And I love to bring out my chargers. Certainly, I'm not doing this all the time. That's a great thing to get a set of if you don't have a set of, and maybe we can even link one or two in the show notes. I have a rattan set, and then I have air quotes gold set. It's some sort of heavy resin, but they look great. And then I'll do a plate on top of another plate, even if I'm not serving a salad or an appetizer that would need a separate plate. Just for the look of the table, you can always whisk one or two of those items away.
And that look of all the plates stacked up, maybe even a bowl on top, all of those layers, as you say, are what make it so beautiful.
Yeah.
So if you're looking and thinking, why does my table not look as beautiful as this one I saw on Pinterest? That's probably why. You probably just have the plate on the table or maybe on a placemat. But if you've got a tablecloth, a charger, a dinner plate, a salad plate, and a bowl on top, then it's going to look stunning.
Yeah, and I like it even more when it is stacked that way rather than sort of the plate and then the main plate and then the salad plate or the bread plate making sort of a triangle. Mm-hmm. I like to have them stacked up. And I don't really know if that is in the rules that we're linking to, but that's a great way to do it. And then rather than having the napkin to the side, I like to put the napkin yet again on top. So it kind of like we talk about in the garden, you're going vertical as much as you can in the table setting and just giving some interest to it. So I like the napkin on top. When Anita talks about the napkins, I'll ring in on some of my ideas on how you might present the napkin, but I don't like it in a glass. Sometimes you see that at a restaurant.
But you can. That is an acceptable option, is to put it in the glass. So you're right.
It is acceptable, but I don't like that. And I think somebody could easily knock your nice glass over too. My first choice on a holiday sort of festive table is on top or to the side with some of the flatware on top.
Right. And traditionally it is supposed to be to the left, but I also prefer it on top of the plate. I find that visually that looks best unless you have a bowl there. And this is when you can even come up with a really beautiful napkin ring. It just really becomes center stage. So depending on the napkins, if you have less exciting napkins and no napkin ring, you might want to go to the left. But if you have like a really flamboyant patterned napkin and or a really extraordinary napkin ring, then I think you want it on the plate. So it really kind of depends on the colors and what you're going for there. And I agree that, I think a tablecloth is really the basis. If you have a really beautiful table, sometimes you may not want to use a tablecloth, but I really like starting with my foundation of a beautiful tablecloth. You can use placemats as well. And I think for a more festive party, I like a tablecloth. And for a tablecloth, my personal favorite that I like to use the most are these beautiful block print tablecloths that are usually made from cotton in India. And there's so many different colors. They're so beautiful. I think those are fantastic. But I also like to use antique linen tablecloths. Sometimes they're monogrammed. I also like to use homespun antique linen sheets for tablecloths. It's kind of a rougher, more open weave, but they really make very interesting tablecloths. Vintage also is really nice to use. And I have some from overseas, Italian and French, that are woven colors, not printed. Those are beautiful too. So there's so many different ways to go. Another tip I would throw out is if you have cotton or linen, which again, that's my preference, I would definitely iron it before you put it on the table, even if it's been Okay, yeah, well, I'm sorry.
You lost me there, babes. You lost me there.
Well, that's my opinion. Obviously, we don't agree on everything, and that's what makes this so fun. But I think it needs to be ironed, unless you're going for that kind of rustic linen rumpled look.
Yeah.
I think that's fine. But ironed, and then if it's been folded up, I would iron out those creases because it's going to look like, when you just put the dress shirt on and it just came out of the package and it has all those fold marks on it across the front of your chest.
I just always think, maybe if I just hang it up and it'll fall out.
Oh, I'm sure. Yes. Oh, I'm sure.
Well, eventually. No, yes.
Not really.
Maybe if I lived in Miami and it was really humid.
So some other things you can use, a cantha quilt, very charming as a tablecloth. Even a brand new linen sheet in a color. There's so many beautiful linen sheets. And also even like a wool throw. There's so many things you can use for a tablecloth. It does not have to say tablecloth on it.
Well, for various reasons, not only the fact that I don't like to iron, I prefer a runner on the table. I don't mind people, putting things on my table because it's already very, very patinaed. I do prefer someone use a coaster so I don't get any water rings. So I do provide those on my table as well.
Okay, now here's the problem with that, and I'm always stressed about this. Someone's there and they think the coaster is just a suggestion that they don't have to follow, and they're not thinking, they're not mean, but they're just not, they're not furniture aware. Yeah. And they just set their glass on the table. Then you're in a situation where, do you let your table get ruined, or do you say what might be considered rude? Excuse me, here's the coaster. Oh, let me give you a coaster. Oh, here's the coaster. Oh, did you see the coaster right by your glass there? How do you handle that?
If I'm related to them, I pick up their glass and I put it on the coaster.
Well, we're going by not related.
Yeah, well, sometimes you just have to pour yourself some more wine and go with it and see what hopefully it isn't.
See what pours out of your mouth.
Yeah, pour something in your mouth before something pours out of your mouth. Lots of times I'm going to avoid something that's an overly moist glass.
Oh, okay.
I can't believe I said that word. It's my least favorite word.
Yeah.
But, if you've got something where it's not really going to have any, water on it or whatnot on the outside of it, you're probably in good stead. I know we're getting really deep into the coaster thing, but I do like a coaster. And it is just a remarkable phenomenon that when there is a coaster provided, that there are certain people in the world that just avoid it even. Like, I don't know what the thing is. So there are coaster people and non-coaster people. I am decidedly on team coaster. So that's a little aside. Let's get back to the runner. I do love a runner, but obviously a tablecloth would protect your table a little bit more from the people who are not on team coaster. Anita's got gorgeous ideas. I love a linen idea. Oh my gosh, the vintage pieces would be gorgeous. But here's something that can be really inexpensive. And if you're worried about little messy people, if you've got kids eating with you, maybe just get a few yards of a really lovely fabric that would work for whatever holiday you're enjoying the table for. So maybe you do in a fall flannelly plaid and bring in what will be your limited color palette and the tablecloth. So you could do that. You could just have it cut. You don't even have to sew any edges when it's a material like.
Let me just say this about the fabric, because I used to use fabric remnants all the time for my tablecloths.
Yeah.
And that was great back in the day. Now fabric is about 4 times what I used to pay for it. So my suggestion is, unless you can get a remnant somewhere, you're going to be blown away by the cost of the fabric. So my suggestion would be to use a throw or a blanket or something that's already cut, because for some reason it's going to be a whole lot cheaper usually than fabric by the yard.
Okay. I didn't know fabric by the yard went up. Wow. Okay. So think about that. If you want to go with the fabric route, but you don't want to buy a lot of fabric, I have this gray plaid runner. If you read my blog, you've probably seen it on there. It's on my table right now. Again, I never really got around to sewing it. I just folded it and it's fine. And then I fold the whole thing up and I put it away until I want to use it again in the fall, even where it meets in the middle. It's not sewn. I just put a big plate on top of it with a tureen on top. All my secrets are being revealed. So that is super easy. It was inexpensive, and I've used it year to year. So there's some thoughts on that.
Hey, we'll be right back with the rest of the show, but keep listening so we can continue bringing you DTT.
So have you tried Dupe yet? If you haven't, come on, dupe.com. It is going to be your new shopping best friend. And it's not just for furniture. I know I've shared with you about my coffee table dupe, but you can save money with Dupe on fashion, shoes, jewelry, and more. I just used Dupe to find an absolute perfect twin of this t-shirt that I wanted. It was an $80 t-shirt. I was not going to pay $80 for a t-shirt. Dupe helped me find the twin, like maybe the exact same shirt. Find something you love, and then you can find replicas, twins, and maybe the exact thing for so much less. Give Dupe a try today. It is really so easy to use. You just type dupe.com / before any product URL in your browser, and voila, it instantly finds you less expensive alternatives. They even have an app and a browser extension you can download. No account is required. No sign up is required. It is completely free. I know, can you believe it? But it is completely free to use. Stop wasting money on brand names and start saving with dupe.com today. Let me talk about the napkin for a second.
Oh, well, I was going to go back to the chargers since
sure.
I want to kind of build. So the chargers, I also agree with you. This makes such a huge difference if you have a charger. So if you haven't tried using them, I would recommend that you do buy a few and try them. I have some oversized white plates. They're really large, maybe 13 inches, and I use those as chargers. But also I have a couple of different rattan chargers. Those are so beautiful. And be sure you get the size that is for a charger and not a placemat, because they are sized a little different. And mine actually are shaped like a plate. And I will link to the ones that I use, but they're not flat on the, well, one type I have is flat, but the other type actually goes up like a plate would. You know, it has a ring at the bottom, and then the sides kind of go up a little bit. So look for something really unique. But the rattan just works so well in so many different settings. So I think that's a great option. I don't have any gold ones, but there are really, I've seen some beautiful silver ones too, but I was kind of, the ones I was looking at were rather expensive, so I didn't get them.
Yeah, my rattan ones are like yours, shaped like a plate. And I got them so long ago at Pottery Barn. So these will be with you. It's not something you use that often. And I have them just in an upper cabinet. And it's fun to take them down. My suggestion is you might think, oh, I only need 6. But, get the 8 or 12. Because you might be in a situation down the line where you need a couple more. And then you can't use the 4 or 6 that you have because you just don't have enough.
Okay, well, thank you for saying that. Mine are expensive, and I was trying to jump over that buying 4 more, but you've just explained why I have to have 4 more. So thank you for that, Kelly. I'm going to be ordering those this afternoon because clearly I only have 4.
Anytime, my friend.
Well, but if you have guests over, you're probably going to have more than 4 people there.
Yeah, and when you're using a charger, it's probably more than 4 people, because it's a bigger meal, it's a holiday, it's a celebration, something like that. So I would just say, what's the point of buying some of them and then you can't even use them because you don't have enough? But the resin ones, the plastic ones I have that are gold, were not expensive at all. And you can't tell they're plastic. And we're anti-plastic. We try to avoid incorporating plastic in our homes in general, but this is something that it's not going to be a one-use plastic, or it's not going to be plastic that's coming into contact with your food. I've had these chargers for a very long time, and no one really even engages with them, so you don't even know they're plastic. So I think you save yourself some money if you want gold or silver. or I guess maybe even a color. But the thing about the rattan is it adds this layer of texture to the table,
Yes.
which is, and I'm sorry about the texture my voice has today. I still have that cold. It's just dingle dangling around and I cannot get rid of it. Okay, can I talk about the napkins now?
Okay. But I do want to go back to dishes, so go ahead.
Go ahead, do your thing, build it, go. Go.
Well, okay. So on the dishes, this is where I think you can do so many beautiful things. And I hope you have more than one set of dishes because, well, you don't have to.
Oh, it's so sad if you don't.
Well, they don't have to be expensive, but to me, it's more fun to kind of change things up. I remember when I used the same dishes every day and I would get sick of them. I went through about 4 different sets. I would sell them and buy new ones. And well, I bought vintage every time, so I wasn't buying brand new ones, but I just found I got tired of them. And so you might want more than one set of dishes. If you're setting a table for a party, you might say, I just associate those with every day. I want something more special for a party. So I think it's nice to have more than one set. So kind of think about mixing and matching. I no longer buy, and I used to buy, when I would buy dishes, I would go all out and buy like the whole thing. And I would really be sick of it after several years because I had the plates, the dinner plates, the salad plates, the cereal bowls, the soup bowls, you name it. I had the platters, and I don't do that anymore. I just kind of have chosen some color themes. And purple is my overarching color. And when I buy them, I buy maybe a set of 4, maybe 4 salad plates or 4 dinner plates, and then I mix and match them. So when I'm having a dinner party, I don't have typically all the same plate on the table, but they all work together. So I think that's a fun way to go. And you can, especially if you're layering the plates so that you have a salad plate and a dinner plate, it's fun to have 2 different patterns, or maybe one with a solid color. So you were talking about the rattan chargers. I think what goes really well with that are the cabbage plates. And you don't have to have the whole, I wouldn't do the dinner plate, the salad plate, and the bowl in the cabbage plates. I would just choose one of those, maybe just the dinner plate. The salad plate goes with it and coordinates with it. And the Bordalo, I'm sure you know that brand. They make those dark green cabbage bowls. I can link to those as well. That goes very well. I have a lot of cabbage plates. I have purple cabbage plates and I have a light green.
Do I need to cut her off, you guys? I mean, this is like dishes. This is like master's degree PhD. We're into cabbage plates. I love it.
No, I'm done. I'm done. Basically, if we're gonna start timing people, you're gonna get ding, ding, ding.
Oh no, it's not the duration; it's the depth.
Okay. So really, the point is, go with more than one pattern or one type of dish to put together. And it's going to be much more interesting than having all the same exact plates on the table.
And it's obvious, but I will just mention it to underline it, is that the plates that are layered should be of differing sizes so you can appreciate the one that's under it. So the charger's the biggest, then there's the plate, which you may or may not use for the main entree, then a smaller plate, and then Anita's saying maybe a bowl or something like that. So graduated in size. So the napkin. Okay, you don't need a napkin ring. You don't have to spend a lot of money on a giant set of 8 or 12 or whatever napkin rings, or even just 4. Napkin rings are really pretty. And if you fall in love with some napkin rings, maybe love is a strong word, but if you really want some napkin rings, well, of course, if the budget allows, go for it. I just don't want to store a bunch of napkin rings. And I remember I had some and then I thought, I took them out years later and I was like, these are chuggy. Why did I even like these? Right? And then you're like, okay, could I make this into something else? No, I just donated those. Okay. So what I like to do, and you'll like this too, Anita, is a little ribbon. Of course you can. Yeah. So of course you can go to town and buy some beautiful velvet ribbon, but I love baker's twine, or even the twine that you would truss up a chicken with, the kitchen twine, or the more rough hewn twine. And I like to tuck in some greens. So no matter where you live, you probably have something that's green in the garden around this time of year, whether it's a conifer or some box or olive or something like that where you're going to have some evergreen leaves, just clip off a little bit, tie up your napkin and tuck in the green. If it's a Christmas time and you want to add in a little berry or something that you find either in your yard, or maybe you get a bunch of little berry stems at Trader Joe's or something like that, seeded eucalyptus. I wouldn't do anything that's messy or anything that's going to sort of, come away. But even a sturdy little flower, holly, something like that. I mean, it's a little pokey, but could be really beautiful.
I think that is fabulous. And I think that there's so many different ways you can go with the napkins. This is another place where you can add interesting textures and patterns. You can go with a very patterned, bold, colored napkin. You can go with linen, cotton. I love antique monogrammed napkins that are in linen. But I also love the beautiful colored napkins as well. So there's so many different directions you can go. I prefer the linen or the cotton. Yes, they have to be iron, Kelly, but they do absorb better. Sometimes those synthetic napkins don't really seem to absorb liquids. If you have a little spill.
Those are the worst. Why do they even make those?
I don't know, but I actually have some of those and I'm like, ugh. Yeah, they're not really the best. For the napkin rings, I'm with you. I don't want something too, cliche or too boring or not interesting. I want it to be really pretty. So I do have some silver napkin rings that I think are very pretty and different. They're all a little different pattern.
Okay, let's move on to low. What am I thinking about when I'm saying the word low in connection with setting a gorgeous table? Low and small florals. Now, a big, beautiful floral is a wonderful idea if you're walking past the table, but it's not a great idea if you're sitting at the table. So whether you're having one made or you're making one or you're just getting some bunches and you're putting them in a taller vase, it's going to be a distraction and difficult for people to have a conversation across the table. And it may also take up too much room if you want to put platters and things on the table. So like I like to approach a room, I'm approaching the table with a functionality in mind as well as the beauty. So I like to use low and smaller vases, some sort of container down the table. So depending how long your table is, I would go with odd numbers. So you're not going to just have one little dinky 4-inch in the middle. You would have 3 or 5. And you could have them just straight in a row, or you could kind of stagger them a little bit. So that's the way I like to approach a holiday table. If there's just 2 people, of course, you can slide a bigger arrangement off to the side and do your candles off to the side, and that will work. But if you're setting a table for more than 2 people, this, I think, is the better approach. So I would do any kind of container. It's ideal if the containers sort of match or at least speak to each other. So one item that I use over and over again is I tend to purchase candles that are, the candles that come in the glass containers that have black glass containers, preferably ones where the label is either non-existent or easy to come off. And I have repurposed those as vases, and I use those really all year round. I have 4 of them on my dining room table right now, flanking the giant platter that's covering the non-sewn runner, and then a tureen on top of that, and then these 2 different size low black former candle holders with boxwood in them. Great. It lasts forever and it looks nice. We don't really sit at that table every night because we sit in the kitchen on usual weeknights, but it looks lovely and you could sit down there and have a meal and you could talk to the person across from you. I would have a very similar setup, a little bit more festive for a holiday table. So that's a great way to do it. And if you're going to have a little bit more going on, you want to maybe run a garland down the table. That's a really nice thing to add. Again, it's low and it's layered. So you could run a evergreen garland. You could strewn leaves down the table in between the smaller vases. You could do acorns. You could do a whole lot of things that you could probably just find outside. Beautiful fallen fall leaves in different colors would be lovely, like as if they just fell from the trees. And then maybe you have little low pots of mums, little small ones, like the 4-inch ones, or you have a container and you do some florals in there, and it can be just greens. So I think that's a great way to approach the florals.
I love flowers on the table, and I like your idea of doing some different things and not going with the traditional single vase in the center with something tall that's going to block conversation. I love putting flowers also in maybe a short little pitcher or a tureen. I think that's great. Also think, depending on the season, you might want some fruit or vegetables in a bowl. There's so many different ways you can go there. Maybe some greenery from your yard, like you said. Just kind of take your cues from the seasons, from what you're seeing outside to see what would work. I also wanted to talk about a few other things. I wanted to talk about the glasses. You can use your everyday glasses. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's also an opportunity to really add a little more oomph to your table if you want to go with something a little special. Stems are very nice. Chunky goblets are fun. It really kind of depends on whether you want to go with something very elegant. You could use crystal. If you want to go with just something very festive and fun, you can go with some goblets in some beautiful colors. And it's so easy to find something maybe in a green or a pink or a blue or a purple. There's so many beautiful colors out there. And I do love adding a little color to my table with some beautiful stemware in a color. And, my mom was, just moved down here, and she was very nice. She gave me her crystal stemware, which actually goes with mine. So now I have enough glasses for, I think, 24 people. Not that I'm going to be having 24 people over at the same time, but I do have them now. Okay, well, let's talk about the flatware too, because this is really another opportunity to add another layer. And I love that idea of the layers that you talked about, because this is another place that you can add something really unique and beautiful. And for example, I have some flatware with pink handles, and I really wasn't using it. And so I gave it to Evie, who loves all things pink. And she just had one of her first, I don't know if it was her first dinner party, but one of her first ones. And the girls went crazy over her pink flatware. And so it was just a really big hit. And she said, Mom, she said, it was just 6 of us. So she said, I didn't want to use paper plates. And I'm like, yay. So she said she used her pink dishes with her pink flatware. French flatware, you can get it on Amazon, and the handles come in all these beautiful colors. You can get about any color. I have some in with green handles. They come with black handles and a lot of other colors. So I think that's kind of a nice way to go with those if you want a little color on your table. Also, if you want something very unique, go with some French silverware. You can get it on eBay. That's where I bought mine. And the silver plate is not that expensive. But with the French flatware, the design is on what we would call the underside of the forks and the spoons. So you put the forks and spoons basically upside down on the table. But that's kind of a different look for us Americans, and I think it's very pretty. So you might try looking for those if you want something different. And another thing that I like to use are the bamboo forks and spoons and knives. And I don't mean the disposable ones. I mean where the handle is made out of a stick of bamboo and it's a metal fork or spoon. So those also are very unique and beautiful looking. So that's another way you can really add something pretty to your table.
Gorgeous. So lit, my third L. I like to use votives. So along the same lines as the vases of florals, I want to keep my candles low. I definitely want to have candles, and I really want to have a flame. The battery operated, maybe that's fine for the sideboard, and I have those too. They are great for the sideboard, or they're great for maybe a lantern that you have off in the corner, and you obviously don't want to have a flame in there where someone could jostle it and there could be an issue. So the table is an area where you're not going to light it and leave it. So you're going to light it and you're going to be there. And so if, God forbid something gets knocked over, you can blow the candle out. So I'm not really worried about safety so much. So the flame is so much more beautiful and everybody looks good in candlelight. So dim those lights, sweet darling, and light up your candles. Get a set of votives, very inexpensive. Those little votive holders you can get in clear glass. I like to get the ones that have a little bit more of an obscured glass, maybe a mercury style or a smoky color, or even colored ones if you want to use a color in that aspect of your table. The clear ones don't look as great unlit because you can kind of see the wax melting and whatnot. So maybe stay away from those. And I would suggest getting more of the actual votive sized candle, which is maybe 2.5 inches tall, rather than those little tea lights. The tea lights just don't last that long because they're just those little pucks. So if you're thinking you might have, start with an amuse-bouche, which is a lovely way to start a holiday meal. So a little extra something special before you start the actual appetizer or entree. So if you're going from amuse-bouche to dessert, you're probably going to need a little bit more time on your candles than those little tea lights would allow. So those are just some tips there. I would run them down the table. You can run them in between the vases or the florals that we talked about. You can tuck them into the garland, and so they can be just sort of a ribbon in a sense down the table. And I think that's a beautiful way to go. I do love taper candles. If your tapers are thin enough, the actual candle holder, you could also use tapers. You just want to be aware of sitting across from someone and having a candle sort of cut their face in half. It's not that great for conversation, but I think it does look lovely. And the longer your table is, the bigger it is, the lonelier tapers look if there's just one here and one all the way down there. So I would suggest, if you're going to use the tapers and you're not worried about blocking people across the table from each other, to cluster them in threes. And it's nice to cluster them with differing heights. And you can cheat that if your tapers are all the same height, the actual holder, then you can just burn down the candles. And that's where you can get your customized differential in height. But I would go with the votives. I think it's a better look for at least the way that I'm describing the table, with layered low and lit with a limited color palette. I think staying real low is the way I would go.
I love that idea. I think you're spot on those. And I love because you can go with different votive holders or tea light holders. There's so many different looks you can go with there. I think that's very beautiful. Or use some really pretty candlesticks. But the problem you get into is if they're too tall, then they're going to block the view. So I agree that should be lit and low. Another thing I wanted to mention is serving water, because no matter what else you're serving to drink, you're going to be serving water, I would think. And I used to use water pitchers, but then I was constantly refilling them. And I finally realized, why don't I just do what the restaurants do? So I started using the large water bottles with the metal clamp-on lids. I keep them in the refrigerator, and then I just set them around the table. And I'm not having to refill. I keep several of those full of water, refrigerated, and then just pull them out, or just go ahead and have them sitting out. That's a wonderful way for people to serve themselves. And I think it's a little neater than the pitchers. I don't think they drip as much. And that's just something I like to use.
Nice touch. A little worrisome with the non-coaster people, but...
Oh, well, see, you have to use the tablecloth there.
I guess you do. Maybe one of those plastic ones.
Well, or you can, if you don't want to put them on the table, you can just put them on, your buffet, wherever you have your other drinks, you can just leave them there.
Yeah. But, we joke. You're having people over. You got to relax and let yourself enjoy the festivities, and certainly let them. And if something spills, so be it. Whatever.
Well,
Hopefully
right.
you
But
didn't
I
spend
think
too much on anything.
if you're worried about your table and that's going to bother you if someone doesn't use a coaster, I do recommend, my personal opinion is just go ahead and use a tablecloth, because then you can chill out, enjoy it, and you're not going to be the coaster police. Just saying.
So hard. You got ironing and you got coaster policing.
I know. I'm just tired just thinking about all this work.
Maybe
I'll just set a table for some photos.
Maybe just go to somebody else's house.
I know.
Okay, my last category is limited color palette. You've heard it before with regard to your entire house and rooms. Definitely a good idea with regard to your table too. It just looks better than having a big mishmash of lots and different colors. Now, does this mean you can't have a salad plate that has a pattern with a lot of colors in it? No, of course you can add that. But I would limit the general colors to 3. And I always want to incorporate white, because I just think food looks so much better on white plates. So I would tend to have my larger entree plate be white, and then maybe the smaller plate be something with a color or a couple of colors. And even if that smaller plate had a whole bunch of colors, say it's some sort of Christmas or a holiday plate, and there's a bunch of colors in there, I would just pull out maybe 2 others to work in throughout the rest of the design, whether it be in the florals or in the votives or in what I'm doing with the napkin. So what are we defining?
A Windsor chair. And I think everyone knows what a Windsor chair is. I thought it would be interesting to hear about the history of it. But if you don't know, it is a wooden chair constructed of turned, slender spindles that are socketed into a solid, saddle-shaped wooden seat. Boy, that was hard to say.
Oh, you're doing a great job.
Okay, so it was original to the 18th century. It was a desk chair originally, and before it was even called a Windsor chair, it was a desk chair. So some of the variations of the chair include the brace back, Philadelphia, smoker's bow, wheel back, sack back, and the white whiskum. But they all fit into 3 categories: the low back, the high back with the straight top piece known as a comb, and the high back curved into a semicircular shape known as a hoop. And what I see more of in the U.S. is the hoop chairs. So the story goes that George III was once visiting some farmers, and he saw these chairs, and he was just captivated by them. And here he had access to these very expensive, gilded this and gilded that. And here he saw this kind of lowly farmer's desk chair and just became captivated by it. So he immediately ordered some for Windsor Castle. The royal household accounts for 1729 do reference 2 mahogany Windsor chairs richly carved. So it has been around for a while. And obviously the Windsor chair is now named for Windsor Castle because the king took a liking to the chair and he lived in Windsor Castle. So isn't that the way it works? It's named after the rich person who kind of pretended he invented them.
Yeah. Yes. George the farmer did not get to have it named after him. That's about
No. Exactly. So it was produced in the United States beginning around 1725. And in general, the U.S. version was lighter than the English designs. They were frequently painted green because they were used in parks and gardens as well as indoors. But I'm like, how did this wood hold up to the outdoors? I really don't understand that. But later on, they were often stained and varnished. And most of the time when I see them, they are stained.
So I'm excited for my crush today. It's another podcast. So as podcast listeners, I love to turn you on to new podcasts. It is called Why Women Grow, and it's by a journalist and writer, Alice Vincent, and it stems from the book that she has written of the same name. Now, is it a gardening podcast? Well, it isn't necessarily a gardening podcast. There's definitely a bit of gardening, but they discuss all sorts of things when she visits women who garden, who grow in their own gardens. I think anybody who likes a good podcast, and these women have incredible British accents. Alice Vincent has a wonderful, soothing, beautiful voice. You're going to like it, even if you're not a gardener. So I'd highly recommend it, and it will be linked in the show notes.
My crush is a set of 20 invisible plate hangers. We're talking about plates today, and I've been hanging plates on my wall. And, this is a conundrum that we have talked about in the past because a lot of these plate hangers are very expensive. So I was looking for something a little bit cheaper, but something that was going to do the job. So this has a little hanger, and then it's got some stickum on it. So you kind of clean the back of your plate, make sure there's no oil back there, stick these on, kind of press them in place, because like I said, they already have some stickum on there. And then you've got to let them cure for 24 hours. After 24 hours, you can hang them on the wall. And I have used them, and they worked very well. My plates are still there a couple of weeks later. These are not the exact ones that I bought. They're out of stock, but these are very similar. So I think these should work about the same.
How are they different from the Leeds ones, those yellow discs?
I think you get 20 for the price of one.
Oh my gosh. That's awesome.
I can't say that exactly, but I can't remember. I just remember those being super expensive.
So
These are much smaller.
So expensive. I used to have to go to the Container Store to get them. And you'd be like, oh, can I cheat and get the smaller one, even though my plate is this big? Is it going to fall? Because it really adds up. So, good. That's a great
I can't remember. It might be $10 for 20. I can't remember. It was just inexpensive, though.
Good. Okay, great. Hey, this was so much fun. It's getting me in the mood for the holidays coming up. So whatever you're celebrating, you can do it with a gorgeous table. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. And remember, we are here to inspire you to create a beautiful home. Until next time.
Want to talk to us? Well, we really want to talk to you. So let's schedule a design consult. Anita and I are here to give you individualized, actionable advice on how to create the beautiful home you want and deserve. It's so easy to schedule a design consult with us. Simply click the link in the show notes or head to decoratingtipsandtricks.com/consult. When we talk to you on the scheduled time, we will be ready with so many great tips, advice, and yes, tricks. So sign up today for a design consult. We can't wait to talk to you.